This is Pivot Perspectives with Chris O'Byrne, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on their road to success, and get exclusive access on how to implement their success into your life and business. Pivot Perspectives is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Chris O'Byrne.
John Brennan, welcome to the show.
Chris, I am honored to be here.
So I like to dig in right away to provide me with a defining moment in your life that helped shape who you've become today.
Wow. God,
Yeah, I like to make it easy right off the bat.
yeah, wow. It's like it's a hell of a journey. Jesus, Murphy. I actually think of really growing up in a multilingual family with many other siblings was the beginning of my journey without knowing that it was going to be part of my journey. Today, I'm the middle of 6, and I have a very unique relationship with each and every one of my brothers and sisters, and that takes emotional intelligence, believe me, because everybody thinks they're ahead of the pack or they're chief of the tribe. And yeah, so I think really, it really is, that's kind of where the beginning started without me knowing it.
Yeah. So I'm also I'm the fourth in line out of 6 kids, so I feel you on that one.
Now, do you have a good
And
relationship
but
with each one of your siblings, or?
for the most part,
Okay,
2 of them are gone now,
fine.
and one of them, okay, no, one of them I don't really talk too much because I won't even use words I shouldn't use. She's been difficult, but then the other 2, yeah, get along well, and one of them I'm really close to.
Well, that's good. That's
So
good.
I'm curious what you learned about working within that, growing up within that position in a household. What did you learn along the way?
Compromise, and that
Yeah.
the other thing I learned that I think it's, as we all have our different experiences, being a son and then a brother and then a husband and a father and a friend, and each one of those along the way, you need to be able to understand that communication can be a little bit different with each person you're involved with. Even my kids, I only have 2, so it should be complicated, but they're very different, and how I communicate with each one is very different. And so along the way, again, not unbeknownst to me, it was the challenge of understanding the other person and how to best communicate to get your message across. And then I carried that into my acting and my corporate speaking.
So the other part of growing up was the multilingual household, and how did that affect things?
Well, I think it's a great question, Chris, because I think so I speak fluent French. I grew up in Montreal. My dad was American from Philadelphia who never spoke French, and my mother was French Canadian who spoke broken English. So I don't know how their relationship survived, but sometimes lack of communication. But I guess the language of love is always there. But so on the French side, what happens is that I think when you learn another language, you not only learn the language, but you become more accepting of different cultures. So it opens up your mind having the opportunity to be multilingual, and I think it makes you a more accepting person of differences. Because when I grew up in Quebec, the French and the English hated each other. It's almost like what you see here with the black and white, which is really, it was a language thing. And so I had friends on both sides. So I was able to be more of a moderator in all these situations. Really, they would go and want to fight each other all the time. So me being a middleman, I guess I've been a middleman my whole life, as we talk. So language has been super valuable in understanding culture. Uh, I can't believe how valuable it became in my own work, particularly as a corporate trainer. When somebody found out I spoke French, oh my God, man, I was like, uh, I was being flown up there all the time, which was great because I still have three brothers in Montreal. And so that other language has been so rich for me, so valuable for me in so many different ways, you know.
So I have a funny story related to that. A friend of mine got a teaching position at a university in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and he met a girl there, and she did not speak English and he did not speak Kyrgyz, but they both spoke Russian. And so they established this relationship and ended up getting married, only speaking Russian to each other, which neither of them was, they were fluent enough, but they weren't super fluent. So,
Well,
yeah, that language.
what's even interesting, even within the language, like I said, I speak French Canadian, which is, has it's just like British English as compared to somebody from New Orleans, right? So you could have two people speaking the same language and not understanding each other. What I was doing a TV series many years ago, and it was a co-production with France, and the other star of I think it was a gal from France. And then, so she wasn't really great at English, but sometimes we just had to speak in English because I didn't understand what the hell she was saying. Because like the expression in Montreal, street language is called joual. It's just street language. Expressions you pick up that are very unique to the space. And same thing with Parisians. They actually speak what they call l'argot. So their expressions that they use in their common language every day, you just have no clue what the hell they just said. I don't know what you're talking about. So what do you mean? Let's talk in our common. For us, it was English. So even within the language, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I've heard really thick Scottish accents, and I don't have a clue what it's like a completely different
No,
language.
it's like whenever
It's crazy.
you're watching TV, you need to have the subtitles from an English show. It could be from Scotland or Ireland, and you're like, yeah,
Yes.
what did he say? So you're reading the subtitles. So it's interesting because, again, we talk about communication, and words are only like 7%, right, of communication. Words are really important, but it's
Yeah.
only 7%. The rest you can kind of get emotions, attitude from tone and body language. And so that's why we got to be good at reading body language.
So I would imagine, and I can see how learning to deal with those language differences has really helped you become a better communicator, probably consciously along the way. And now you said you were in acting for a while. Tell me about that.
I was an actor for 20 years. As you can see, you can't see too much of my background. This is the only room allowed to put anything up in. This is like it's like my museum or my shrine to a past life. It's all part of our journey, right? And that's when you said, because I learned things
Yeah.
each part of my journey. So I had a 20-year journey as an actor. I was very, very fortunate. I probably did 50 commercials. I was on a soap opera in New York as a contract player. I had my own TV show. It wasn't like my show. I was the star of a TV show. We did 80 episodes of that. A lot of guest stars and stuff. So I was very fortunate and learned a lot of things. And I learned a lot of things within the acting world that are valuable in communication. I talk about that today.
Why did you move away from acting?
Well, first of all, I have a degree in business, right? So my whole acting career
Yeah.
started with a fraternity prank, right? So I was the guy in the fraternity who I knew about 6 songs on a guitar, and enough for the guys to say, "Oh God, don't take out your guitar." But I just knew enough to romance the girls, and then the uh, theater arts, were a graduating class had to do their work, and it was a film they had to do, and they were looking for a country western singer. So they put my fraternity brothers put my name up there, and I went to the audition. I got the part.
Oh my goodness.
My career. Now, how I transitioned out of it, multiple reasons really. After having a lot of success, I was in Vancouver at the time after doing the show Bordertown. I did the commission, a bunch of stuff up there. I realized I had to be, at that time, I know it's hard to tell today, but that's a leading man type, so that was like 40 pounds ago, and 30 years and 40 pounds ago. So I moved down here, and now I have a house in Los Angeles. I have 2 kids going to private schools. So, sometimes as an actor, you go through some dry spells, and so in the past, you were able to fill that in with commercials and all that. And one of the things that I was doing was industrials, which you come in and you read a teleprompter, you're the expert on this film. I'm not the expert. I just read a teleprompter and I was acting like the expert. But they liked the way I was free and with being able to communicate. And so they asked, could you teach others how to kind of present like that? And I said, sure. Because when you do it industrial, you get paid for the day. There's no residuals. That's it, right? You just move on. So they said, listen, we'll pay your same rate for the next 30 days. And I went, I'm in. So eventually, and then they kept calling me to do stuff and over and over. And so eventually, as an actor, you have to be available for the audition, the callback, and the program, this thing. So you have to be available. Your schedule has to be quite open, right? And that's why people are maybe bartenders and waiters and stuff. With this, it wasn't open, but it was a sure thing. And so eventually I just kept getting the sure thing. And then I had some medical issues that really made it stop. And I had a bunch of eye surgeries. I had problems with my eyes. And so I would bump into flags on the set, and I said, I got it. This is not good. I can't do this anymore. And so I literally transitioned into becoming a corporate trainer, which between you and I, Chris, is just another stage. It's just another stage,
Yeah.
I was delivering programs. I acted like I was the expert, and eventually you got to be the guest. And then I became an expert in soft skills, in sales, and in how to approach. Using both the skills that I got as an actor and the things that I learned along the way from, people, great customer service people like Disney and Ritz-Carlton and Nordstrom. So I learned from all of them, and all the millions of dollars that are invested into these corporate trainings on how to elevate the customer experience and all that jazz. So I embraced all that, and I'm real comfortable with it, and that's how I ended up writing a book about it.
So what did you get the most out of from your acting career that you were able to use in corporate?
Great question. A couple of things along the way that I learned, right, is when you're doing like a soap opera, we were doing an hour of television every day. People would say, how do you learn all that? And it's not really a gift that I have. And I learned that if I listened to the other actor, because we're in a conversation, unless I'm doing a soliloquy, if I listen to what's happening in the scene, my dialogue should naturally come through that if it's written well. You see what I mean? So you have to become a good listener to be able to deliver the information. And so that was listening skills. Actively listening was good, because also the way the actor would deliver their lines would affect the way you would have to deliver your lines. Otherwise, you're not in the scene. So for some reason, that actor decided to get really angry there. Well, I got to carry that. I got to take that and go with it, right? So it's about listening and going with it. So that was super valuable. Another improv situation that's really good is there's a thing out there called yes and. So you accept everything and then you add something. You never say no, because it stops the communication. So whether you're in sales or in service or, you know, when somebody comes and says, you know, can I have this? And it's no, you say, well, yeah, so I understand your problem. Let me see what I can do about that. So I can take that information and move it along. So it's yes and, you know, how do I do that? And the other big thing I learned, which is super valuable in communication, is observation. As an actor, you observe things to be able to reproduce it, right? Let's say you're going to be playing an older gentleman, so you watch guys, how do they move? How do they walk? What do they do? So you start looking at that, and then that translates really well to soft skills in the sense of the observing of what's happening around you. The person that's in front of you, let's say you're coming in for a sales job and you drive around the lot, observe what's happening there. Coming into the office, you may observe a picture of a family, some golf clubs over there. Now there's all kinds of information that I'm picking up that I can use in my conversation, you know? So those are just a few of the things that I think are valuable in communication in general. Active listening, just take the conversation and don't kill it, keep moving it forward. Observation, all those things are super valuable in general. But particularly if you're in the customer service environment.
So what was some of the work you were doing? You had mentioned some of these bigger companies like Nordstrom's and Ritz-Carlton. What was the nature of the work that you were doing for these big companies?
Well, what happened was that they actually were coming in to train us. You're doing corporate training, sometimes it's a thing called a T3. So it's called train the trainer. So they would train us on their way of doing things. And how can we take that and use it going forward into the communication that we're going to be doing? So I learned from Disney how to make things simple. Make them simple. And if you're having a bad day, nobody gives a damn about your bad day. Leave that back in the locker room. When you're on Main Street, you're on stage. And I get that. I got that as an actor. It doesn't matter what's happening to you. When you're on stage, you are on, period. And then all that stuff is going to be there when you're at the end of your day. So don't bring it into the stage. Don't bring it with you. Ritz-Carlton was really great at teaching me the value of personal, making it personal. So here's this, very, high-end company, and they make an effort to greet the guests by their name and to see if there's anything that they can do for them over and above. And then when the guest leaves, they greet them, they say by their name. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. That little thing is so valuable because it tells a person that they matter, that I value you. You are important. And what happens is that, like a lot of us, I'm a culprit of this. I'm terrible at remembering names. So I came up with ways to remember stuff. So I put that in the book too. How do you remember somebody's name, right? Because I have to actively do it. Everything in the book is things that I needed help with. So it's all good. And then with Nordstrom's, I learned the whole thing about being proactive, what they're prepared to do to satisfy the customer. So those were just some of the things I picked up, and I picked up a bunch of stuff along the way from there. But those were really influential in how I believe you can be successful with your customer, your client, or your guest, or your interviewee in a podcast.
Nice. Nice. So you, when you, well, I think the question is more why. So why did you transfer into or pivot into your own business?
Well, the pivot question is good. It's exactly, those are multiple pivots. So the pivot from the acting into the corporate training, the pivot from the corporate training into the speaking. So part of it was, I got tired of telling it, not tired necessarily. I had more to give. So when I'm in corporate training, I'm basically delivering mostly somebody's program, and then I can sprinkle it with my own stories and that sort of thing. That's what makes hiring me more unique than somebody else. Not that I'm better, I just have different stories. And so it's about what I found to be valuable over all that time period, from the acting to the corporate training, of these little gold nuggets that I saw being successful with the salespeople I was talking to, with the management that I was talking to, even ownership along the way at all these different levels. What really connected with them, and what were they able to take away and make a difference? So I was able to gather all that together, because it was, I picked up here, a little picked up there, and put it all in a very simple format. The book is really simple; it's 99 pages. But when I speak about those subjects. I talk about simple, personal, and proactive. Right? I talk about what I call the EI mix, as compared to, and I use that as an example, like in television and film, you have the sound mix. They bring in the sound for you. As an actor, it's just you and the other person. You could be in a bar; they're not actually talking; they're all quiet. Nobody's saying a friggin' word, but they're just mouthing stuff. So all that has to be brought in afterwards, right? Atmosphere. They actually record the room's atmosphere. Then all the sounds, music, sounds on the outside. All that comes in to make it a full picture, and that's the sound mix. On the EI mix, I call it get, right? G is generosity of your time, generosity of your praise and recognition. E is for empathy, having empathy, understanding the other person. What does that mean? T is being trustworthy. Well, what does trust? And so I break all those things down. And I've had the opportunity to develop my own program, which has been really great. I just finished doing an international kind of tour with that, and I've kind of customized it and personalized it for that particular client. And I found it just extremely satisfying to be able to do that. And I found that it connected really, really well with the audience, like people coming up just afterwards. And these, this particular group just happened to be, for a large company called Packard, who do, Peterbilt and Kenworth trucks. But these guys have to go out and they're selling Packard parts, and they're selling truck parts. There's not much difference between that and actually a fancy hotel. It's just the guest is different, and what the expectation is a little bit different. So I'm able to customize it to them, and there's a satisfaction in being able to communicate your information and seeing the results. And I think that's why I like doing it, because it's like acting, right? You get the immediate, when you're on stage, you finish you get the immediate applause and recognition right away. Well, you still get that if you're doing a good job. I still get that in doing corporate training in front of a large group, or doing a keynote in front of a large group. I spoke at the North American Dealer Association, and it was the subject matter was important, because they weren't coming to see me. Was most of them didn't really know who I was, I don't think. But the subject matter, and then staying, was because of how I was delivering it, and just a response to the information. It fueled me forward, So I combine both things. I still do corporate training, but I do a lot of my own stuff.
So you've mentioned soft skills a few times, and I'm curious, would you define soft skills as relying more on emotional intelligence versus, say, rational intelligence?
Absolutely, because here's how I describe emotional intelligence in my world, right? There's three little bubbles. You have self-awareness, right? Like I grew up, I've had anger issues along the way, whether it be driving or just short-tempered because stuff's going bad. And I've had to learn to identify that I can go off the handle. I have to, and then I manage it. So I can manage it. So then the second part is social awareness. And that's where that active listening and listening more than speaking is involved. Often in sales, they're just trying to push stuff to you. Don't listen. Listen, the customer will tell you what they want and need. Then you can help them. So that's the second bubble of the social awareness. And once I have those two pieces, I can, on the social awareness, I use that EI mix of trying to understand everything. Now I can make better decisions for the relationship. It's all about relationships. I did a whole program for a big credit company about becoming trusted advisors. How do you become a trusted advisor? Well, it's certainly not by pushing a bunch of stuff down their throat. It's how can I help you, right? I want you, my job is to make you successful. How can I help you? How can I help you do that, right? So it's all that. It's all about building relationships, period. I even take the analogy of, my own multiple experiences. I won't bore you with the story, but in the automotive industry, right? Instead of just being worried about this first sale, think about building a relationship with this customer over time and how valuable that can be. There's a guy who wrote a book years ago, Carl Sewell. He's in the automotive industry, and it was just, and it's true for any industry. It was called Customers for Life. The value of a customer over time is so much more sale and done, one and done. You're just reinventing the wheel all the time. So soft skills, emotional intelligence, I think it's key in any relationship, all relationships. I'll tell you a little story.
So what do you, please?
Tell you a story. Okay, so here.
No, I want to hear the story.
Because the beauty is that what's nice is you keep learning, you keep reminding yourself of what you're supposed to be doing. So research, an old expression. Remember the old expression, the golden rule, right? So what's the golden rule, Chris? Do you know what it is? The golden rule?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right. So that seems to others. Okay. But today there's another one. It's called the platinum rule, right? And you see that. I've seen that with Ritz Carlton. We've seen with these higher end, which means treat others the way they want to be treated. It's a little bit different, right? So if you come to my house, I don't have just what I like. I have what you like, right? So recently, my wife, I've been married 41 years, right? So we've been together a long time. And recently she had some medical issues and she wasn't feeling well. And she asked me to make her, can you make me some soup? So that's not a big thing. I can handle soup, right? And she likes her soup like retardedly hot. Like, how can anybody eat it like this? So she says, I like my soup hot. And I go, yeah, no problem. So I put her a soup and I make it hot, like too hot for me. But it wasn't hot enough for her. So when I gave her the soup, we got into this big argument because I was like, it's fine because it was good enough for me. What's your problem? Why are you being so upset? What she understood by it is that she's not important, that I'm not listening to her, right? That I don't care about her wishes. And that was a huge aha moment for me. Like, why don't I just give her the soup the way she wants her soup, right? And those are the little learning lessons along the way. So the same thing when I think about my kids and understanding how I communicate with them and what is it that their need is will adjust how I communicate with them. So that's part of the process. But that was a big aha moment of 41 years. So now she gets her soup and it's like, I wear oven mitts to bring it to her, and I say, "Okay, here you go. I love you." So.
Oh, that's great. So who is your ideal customer, and what is it that makes them ideal for you?
Love that question because it was, when people are talking about, who's your ideal customer, and they say, "Who's your avatar?" and they're saying, "There's one person." Well, yeah, my ideal customer is the customer, but the customer doesn't know that the customer's not asking for it. So my ideal customer is associations and or corporations that are trying to improve their connection with their customer, elevate their customer service. So it could be the hospitality industry, it could be a travel industry. I'll give you an example. I'll give you another. I got tons of, sorry, Chris, lots of examples. I just recently.
I love them.
Yeah, no. So I am in. So my son was going to a concert in Vail, right? So he asked me. He said, "Listen, this will look too expensive for him." I said, "Dad, you got some points." So I set him up with the hotel. I got him some points. It was like a $500 room for them in Vail. Fancy, right? So when they went to their concert and then they came back to the room. It was late, it's dark, so they didn't care. The next morning they realized the coffee machine didn't work. And they're taking a shower, and he took video of all this, took the shower, took a shower, and it didn't drain properly. It wasn't draining properly. So they ended up with like half a full bath. And in the windowsill were like tiny little bugs in these multiple webs on the two windowsills. Highly unacceptable from a nice hotel. Highly unacceptable. When he mentioned it on the checkout, he said, "Well, you should have told us before. We could have tried to fix all that." Well, I'm leaving now. So we told him, and when he told us the story, we went back to it was actually Hilton, and said, hey, this is not cool. This is not acceptable. It cost me 80,000 points for the room. It's not about the points. It was that this is not acceptable for the type of hotel here in Vail, Colorado. It's just, and they didn't make it. They were still. I put my wife on it. She's the hot suit gal, so she's dealing with that. And yet, I just got back from doing a meeting in Edmonton. I was in Edmonton, Alberta. I was in a JW Marriott. It was one of the best customer service experiences I've ever had. And I stayed in Ritz-Carlton, and I would say them all over the world. There was two young gals. They were very welcoming, made me feel valued and important at the concierge. They were super cute. I mean, not, cute in their personalities and stuff like that. Very helpful. They gave me my card like this, walked me to the elevator. I get into my room. In my room, there's a personal greeting. There's actually a bottle of wine because they found out that I like wine. There's a nice bottle of wine there as a thank you. Again, that was great. But everybody I met along the way, from the maintenance people to, I was there for a conference. So I was there for almost 4 or 5 days. Every person I met was outstanding as far as making me feel important and valued and thanking me for doing business with them. And it was like, and you know what it is? It's not hard. It's just caring. It's caring and valuing you. They greeted me by my name. Not a big deal, but it makes you feel like, oh, wow, they care enough to learn my name. And so it was like two different, I guarantee you, I don't know what the room was, I didn't pay for the room, but it was in Canadian. So it wasn't the cost of the Vail experience, but the Vail experience makes me not want to go back to, not only not go back to that hotel, but maybe not that brand. So they hurt the brand.
Yeah.
When you drop the ball on a customer, you don't just drop, you say, well, I got 1 million customers. Yeah, but now you just hurt the whole brand. So.
Have you found that most of your customers who are seeking improvements in customer service are already pretty decent at customer service, which is why they want to get better, versus the complete dummies who are terrible at it and don't even think about it?
Well, here's what's funny. A lot of people think they're good at it, right? So if you actually, there's a study out there when they asked luxury customers. So I do a lot of luxury customer stuff. They asked luxury customer, did you have a luxury experience, right? Well, first of all, they asked the customer, the businesses, do they offer a luxury experience? 80% of them said yes. We offer a luxury experience. When they asked the customers, 9% said they had a luxury experience. So in their mind is they think they're giving a luxury experience. I'll tell you something else, and I hope I'm going to be careful who's listening to this show, but I'm doing this whole thing for Porsche. Porsche, I was up there, they're delivering a car that's $300,000. Talking about emotional intelligence as far as how the architecture of the building, because these are all brand new buildings, right? How to maximize the architecture for the experience of the customer. You can have the nicest building in the world, beautiful cars, and it'd still be a terrible experience because the host greet you well, the guy didn't know where his stuff was, he didn't know what to do, and so that experience is dead. But I was amazed not only in how they dropped the ball in constructing these $20 million buildings as far as the location and how people move around naturally, that they miss big things, And on the inside, managers and stuff like that, you had very unique pods. You had pods for an electric vehicle. You had another pod over here for accessories. But in the electric vehicle pod, not an electric vehicle. Okay. Over here in the accessories, There's no accessories. The delivery bay is really beautiful, but it wasn't personalized. It had nothing on the shelves. It was very generic. And these are people who think they're delivering a great experience. And so I'm like, guys, you just got to warm this up a little bit here. I mean, it blows me away. So to answer your questions, a
Yeah,
lot of people don't realize the experience they're actually giving their customers. You know, and
that is a
so
good point.
and every person needs to be on the same page, because the experience that the customer has with whoever they're talking to, whether it be the salesperson, the host, is their experience with the brand. If you drop the ball along the way, you throw everybody under the bus. It just could be that person was having a bad day that day, and that's who you ended up
Yeah,
talking to. So
yeah.
I talk about it.
Well,
Another thing I talk about is another guy who wrote a great book, Jeb Blunt. Ever hear Jeb Blunt? He wrote a book called
oh yes.
People Buy You. And whenever I ask my audience, I said, do you believe the truth? Because we talk about brand, everybody's always thinking about the brand that's behind them. No, you're the brand. What's your brand like? Right? Because your brand is a reflection of the brand. So you're carrying the weight for these guys. But if you do a bad job, you throw them under the bus. If you do a good job, you can elevate everybody. I'm
Yeah,
really
that makes
selling
sense
you,
for
Chris.
sure.
I'm selling you today.
You are. I love it. Well, let's shift into talking about your book.
Okay.
The title is The EI Connection, Emotional Intelligence, the Key to Elevating the Experience. Tell me about your book.
So it's a combination of everything I've talked to you about already. But at the same time, because I
Yeah.
know that my audience, like me, I have attention deficit. I can't sit. You better be entertaining, or I'm not sitting here, right? Or I'm not going to read I tell a story about my brother in the book, and he hasn't even read the book. It's like 99 pages. I'm like, Harry, it's 99 pages. Read the book. It's big font. What color in it? So people don't like to read the books, or read books in general. That's so my book was it was the intention for a participant that's like, come on, man, just get to the point, right? So I have some stories in there. I have some actionable tools, things that help you be successful along the way with the soft skills and just communication. I used the same information and tweaked it a little bit when I went and spoke to universities, right, about them and what they're about to experience. Because that's something else I learned along the way. When they're hiring young people out of school, it's a problem. There's a disconnect, right? So anyway, so the book talks about that. It talks a little bit about the things that I learned as an actor, the things that I learned as a corporate trainer, and it's just the gold that I carry along the way. And I think that if you read it, you're able to walk away with actionable things that you can do to improve your relationship, and but it's and and the book's been interesting because I wrote the book during COVID when I wasn't busy, because I wouldn't have had been able to sit down long enough to write it, and it's been monetized in so many different ways. It was really about an opportunity to help with speaking opportunities. But I've had speaking opportunities through the book. I developed an online program because of the book. I did develop workshops that I've delivered using the book. So the book's been very valuable, and I think there's something in it for everybody. That's why when somebody says, who's the book for? Well, it's pretty much for everybody. But it was originally written to help with elevating the customer experience and the guest experience. That's why it was written. But it translates in so many other areas.
So it sounds like the book met the expectations you had for it when you were writing it.
Well, my only expectation when I was writing it, Chris, was that when I was at Thanksgiving dinner and somebody said something, I could go, "Oh yeah, have you written a book?" That's being part of that's being part of a family of 6 with an Irish father with a lot of sarcasm. So, you know, it reminds me years ago I did a film in the early days. It was called Galaxis, and it was with Sylvester Stallone's old wife or something. I forget her name. Bridget Nielsen. Anyways, so I tell my brother, right? This is the same brother, Harry. He's my Irish twin, right? So Harry. So I say, Harry, it's at Blockbuster. You should go rent it, So he rents it. I call him back. And I say, hey, did you see the movie? He said, yeah. He says, I said, what'd you think? He says, you owe me $4. There you go.
Well, that's to the point.
Oh man, so that's the kind of life I've lived. You know what I mean? So they keep you pretty much grounded, and yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. It's something you accomplish, something that you can leave forward for my kids. I hope that they can learn from it too. So yeah, the book's been good.
Is there anything you wish you would have done differently with the book?
Not really, not really. I think there might be something else in the future. The original book I wanted to write was the value of a sense of humor, which I think is still very valuable today, since poor comedians can't go out there and make jokes or they get in trouble. Um, and and I've always had a sense of humor. Depending on who you are, you either think it's good or not. And I've always used it in any of my presentation. That's why it's called edutainment. What I do is edutainment. So I make it fun while you're learning something, because I think you learn in moments of pleasure. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's any humor that comes out of the book. Not like you, Chris. You've written a lot of different books. Be interesting to see if you ever have time to peruse through the quick book. It's a pretty easy read. See where I could have made things better. But maybe the next book will be the value of a sense of humor.
There you go. A lot of need for that.
Yeah.
So what parting words of advice would you have for people?
Value the person you have in front of you, no matter who you are. I mean, if you're just working at the fair and you're a person there that's either giving out tickets and somebody comes up and they're lost or whatever, and instead of just saying, yeah, it's over there, you look at the person in the eye and say, I see you. Let me help you. Let me see what I can do for you. Those are the little things that we can do for each other to just, especially today. I don't know what happened to us during COVID, but people are getting goofy. There's, it's just like there's no character is not important. And all it is about caring about the other person's needs. So how can I help you today, right? Whether you're being a salesperson, service person, in a hotel, a travel agency, all that kind of stuff. It's not me pushing stuff at you, but me trying to find out what you need. Let me find and then I can take care of you. Let me take care of you. I'd like for everyone to just take it a little bit more, And part of that is managing your own emotions and being empathetic towards what the other person may be going through, I'll give you one more.
Yeah, that's good.
One lasting story.
Please.
So again, this was a story I often tell about, managing your emotions. So my oldest son is like 33 today, married, happily married. But he was probably 15 or 16 at the time. And obviously, I'm going to be teaching him how to drive. So I realized everything I'm doing, he's going to pick up on. I'm living in Los Angeles at the time. I'm coming over the Hollywood Hills. And I grew up in Montreal. You can get angry there and people just say they're sorry. In California, in Los Angeles, you get a little road rage, somebody will shoot you. So I wasn't thinking about that at the time. But anyways, it was my turn to get in the lane. And then somebody just cut me off. And man, I was angry. I stayed on that guy's bumper. I stayed on it. I want him to know that how dare you? How dare you cut me off? Do you know who I am? Anyways, I couldn't wait to get to the light to let them know. I get to the light, I look over, and it's a woman, and I give her, the high five thing, and I'm yelling and screaming. And I turn the corner, and my son goes, that was really mature, Dad. And it kind of hit me like a cold glass of water. Like, how stupid was I? I let it hijack me completely. And I decided on that day that I'm not going to let that happen again. Now, I have to monitor it, but it changed. And the other thing is, and I don't know, and this is the part that we're talking about, caring about the other person. I don't know what's happening in that person's life. Maybe they're on the way to the hospital. Maybe there's something happening at home. Maybe the house is on fire. Or maybe they were just poorly brought up, right? So I don't know I can just assume that there's something maybe that they need the parking space more than I need it. So instead of me getting upset about it, saying, okay, man, go ahead. I'll go somewhere else. So it's been really helpful for me, better for the driving enthusiasts of Southern California, and I haven't gotten shot yet. So that's all really good. But it's managing your emotions, understanding what the other person could go through, and making better decisions because of that. There you go. There's emotional intelligence.
That's perfect. So where would people go to learn more about you?
Well, you can certainly find me on LinkedIn, John H. Brennan. The H in my name, I always introduce, it's actually for Henry, but whenever I'm talking to a group, I tell them that the H in my name is for humor. And if I say something to you that you don't think is funny, then that's your problem. You don't have a good sense of humor. So, and then my website will have a lot more information, and it's just John H. Brennan, all one together. So www.johnhbrennan. And if you want to hire me, I think you can hire me through there and get my information. I'd be more than happy to come talk to you.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No problem. Chris, I want to tell you, you have been my favorite podcaster. You ask great questions, and I've actually had a lot of fun, as you can tell. I'm emotional, as you can see. I get pretty emotional, but I've really, really enjoyed the time together. So thank you for the opportunity for us to have a conversation today.
Not only do I appreciate that, but I'm glad I left us recording it.
Okay, good. And
just now I've got it in a record.
Absolutely, use it to promote yourself. But I speak from the heart, and I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't believe it. So, and good luck in all your endeavors, whatever
I really appreciate
whatever it is that you're doing, and hopefully our paths will cross some other time.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to Pivot Perspectives with your host, Chris O'Byrne. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advice on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.